Creation began before Jesus. Creation began before Jesus. This is lesson number 107 in the New Testament is Fake series. Today's date, October 2nd, 2017. Title of my lesson is Idol. Listen to this thesaurus on the word idolize. Adore, deify, glorify, and did they not glorify Jesus? Revere, venerate, worship. So even the Israelites today who are returning to the Most High are learning that they're Israelites, but they must come and glorify and deify this Jesus who himself is not the Most High, as much as they want to tell you that. That is the way that people tricked other people in ancient times in other nations, but also the Israelites, to making them feel like this God should be worshipped as God. There is no way to get people to worship a God if you do not tell them that it is God. They have to feel like this is some kind of supreme being greater than themselves and so on, and that this being created the earth and is responsible for their blessings and rainfall and sunshine and things like that. So you put that deity in the place of God. Understand that when Elijah was fighting on Mount Carmel for truth, the story comes across as though both Elijah and the false prophets of Baal were talking about the same God. See, that was the fight, because the people thought Baal was God, but Elijah was telling them, no, the God of Israel is the one, but he is different than the Baal you are serving. So things had gotten so complicated and the deception was so ingrained that the people had grown in their deception through years and years of conditioning from false teachings from other people who identified this people as the children of Israel, but told them that they should worship this other deity. This is the same tactic being used in modern times by expert teachers of deception who are telling other people, you are the children of Israel that your grandparents and great-great-great-grandparents came on slave ships. You are the Israelite black woman, black man, but you should worship this deity that died on Calvary. It's the same thing as in Elijah's time. The same thing. But we see from this thesaurus how it's exposing that. Now look in this dictionary for the word idol, the meaning of idol. And this is Merriam-Webster's dictionary online. It says idol, a representation or symbol of an object of worship. A representation or symbol of an object of worship. Broadly, a false god. Even the dictionary is letting you know, basically, as I'm bringing it out here in this lesson, that this Calvary Messiah is a false god and is an idol. If you don't think Jesus is a false god and an idol, then can't you remember how the New Testament teaches that he was the one who made everything, when everyone reading the Old Testament knows exactly that the Creator created everything? John chapter 1, these very deceitful teachers of Torah try to tell you that the Most High made Jesus first and then Jesus created everything else, and they use John chapter 1 to tell you that everything was made by him, meaning Jesus, and without him, Jesus, was Nothing was left out, or everything was made by him, basically. That is false. Everything could not be made by Jesus because the Most High made him. That means that he did not make himself. You say, oh, that's just silly arguments. You're being silly. Because when you say everything is made by him, even when the New Testament itself says everything is made by him, things right there includes living beings as well. It doesn't just include stones and the dirt and so on. It includes people as well. It's saying he made everyone as well. That's basically, it's including everything that we know of. But the Most High made him. So he did not make himself. That means that if the Most High made him, there was someone else that was doing the creating and started creation before he came about. There was someone else that was doing the creating and started creation before he came about. There was someone else that was doing the creating and started creation before he came about. So how can everything be made by him when the whole deal with creation began before Jesus? Creation began before Jesus. Creation began before Jesus was even alive to take his first blink. Creation began before Jesus was even alive to take his first blink. Creation began before Jesus was even alive to take his first blink. So you see the deception? But even the dictionary is pointing out that he is an idol, right? He's an object of worship, and the Israelite is worshiping him because he's an idol, which is an object of worship, a representation or symbol of, right? Now, you're not finding all of that in this definition because this is just a dictionary, but of course, I'm throwing in biblical thought in there. Idol, a likeness of something, a form or appearance visible but without substance. And you see up before when they said a likeness of something, the Most High said he didn't give you any similitude. You couldn't see anything to say this is how God looks like. So when people are saying this is black Jesus, this is how he looks like, this is what he would have looked like, they're doing that because you're dealing with a man, which would then be an idol. So that's why they can have an image of a man and say he's a black man, because this is a black man's God, and this Jesus is a black God, and the Europeans stole him from us and painted him white. So they've got an image of a man they said lived because they are using the image of somebody that they can see, when the Creator tells you through Torah that you can't see an image of him. That he didn't give you an image the way you see the image of a man. So if you have an image of a black Jesus as a black man on your website or in your car or in your Bible, or wherever you print it from your printer and put it on your websites and so on, you are pushing idolatry in the earth and forcing down the throat of other Israelites idol worship, telling them to swallow your idolatrous teachings, telling them to swallow your idolatrous teachings, telling them to swallow your idolatrous teachings. Idol, an object of extreme devotion. And that's how the Most High complained that you left him for these other gods, and this Yahushua is one of those gods. That means that if the Most High made him, there was someone else that was doing the creating and started creation before he came about. That means that if the Most High made him, there was someone else that was doing the creating and started creation before he came about. That means that if the Most High made him, there was someone else that was doing the creating and started creation before he came about. So the thesaurus and the dictionary show that this 2,000-year-old Messiah that people worship is an idol, as at ground zero in ancient Israelite times, among the ancient Israelites and prophets, they never loved Jesus. When you're at ground level with them back then in their time, they never loved Jesus or adored him in their heart. But the definition of idol is showing you that an idol is some kind of deity that is loved like that, or a false god. And since the Most High had already established himself as the only God and the only creator, then you know Jesus must be the fake. Look at the other gods. Even when you're dealing with the king of Assyria and Rabshakeh is speaking for him saying, hey, don't let Hezekiah trick you, as the other nations had their gods deliver them from us, showing you that even a mere man who is a king running an empire that was strong could smash over the other people who worshipped these other gods that they had, because these gods are idols. They don't have power to do stuff. But the Most High could deliver his people, as in Hezekiah's time, because he is the only real God. See, he is proving there that he is not an idol like the other gods that Assyria was able to overcome. And the only time when Assyria was ruling and kicking in the butt of Israel was when they were in transgression, which would happen at any time when Israel was doing transgressions. They would start to get beat up. So the Most High is showing that he is a real God, because as long as Israel was doing his will fine, the other nations would not be able to have power over them. But the other nations who were worshipping their fake gods would get beat up a lot by different nations. They would all be battling and beating each other up because their gods couldn't do anything for them. So Jesus, being fake, he's trying to get some credibility from the authors of the New Testament, so they try to make him resemble the real God in some kind of way, like in John chapter 10 and verse 30, saying, I and my Father are one. See, he's stealing some kind of credibility from the Most High, because he doesn't have any of his own. Where the Most High could just speak so many times in the book of Isaiah, for example, saying, I alone, I am the only God, I am the only one. Because he doesn't need anybody to rely on to make him God. Now look at Deuteronomy chapter 32 as we continue to talk about idols here. And verse 17. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Now if you look at the new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not, the teachers who are deceiving you, who know the Torah way better than I, and have been set up to teach by other people who ran camps that they inherited. These people are raised up to teach Jesus and push him down in your throat with Hebrew words, Hebrew names that they call him. They don't ram Jesus down your throat because they say Jesus is white, but they ram Yahushua down your throat because Yahushua is black. But he uses the same Bible, meaning the same Christian Bible, the same New Testament, the same chapters with the same amount of verses in each New Testament chapter, the same stories, the same events happening in those stories, the same kind of things, the same miracles, everything like I've told you before. But they are telling you he is not Jesus, he is Yahushua. And you wonder why black people are such idiotic people when it comes to spiritual things. Because you allow other idiots to tell you garbage. This is not Jesus, it's Yahushua. And you still cannot find Yahushua in any Hebrew dictionary that I've ever read. So they made up a word for him and told you he is Yahushua. And so you should accept him because he is not Jesus. Yet these same teachers can understand what the text is saying in Deuteronomy 32 verse 17 when they're teaching something else, or when they're teaching you, probably, some of you. But they will ignore it when someone is teaching the truth about this, like myself. When we pointed that the scriptures clearly say that the Most High is saying here they're worshiping new gods newly come up, who your fathers did not fear. Now, people think, instead of having extra idols, because Yahweh is your idol, and then you idolize your teacher as well, who's teaching you these lies, instead of idolizing Yahweh plus your Yahweh teacher, how about taking a moment to think for yourself that if way back then the Most High is saying to the Israelites that their fathers did not know these certain gods, so why are you worshiping them? How much more is it going to be still true today that if your ancient Israelite fathers like Jeremiah and others and Obadiah and Elijah and so on never worshipped Jesus or Yahweh, why are you worshipping these new gods, newly come up gods that they did not know or worship or adore or idolize or love in their heart? You tell me Isaiah prophesied about Jesus, yet Isaiah did not love him or worship him or fear him like the Most High says. It doesn't matter if you want to say Isaiah prophesied about him. Isaiah, for this point at least, did not adore him and did not worship him and did not fear him. So even if you say Isaiah prophesied about Yahweh, which is wrong, he did not fear him, and the Most High is basically telling you in Deuteronomy 32:17, you shouldn't be worshipping or trusting in any god your fathers did not fear. Even if you say this Yahweh Yahushua was in the Garden of Eden and he was the one who came up to Adam and so on. And look how dumb that is anyway. Because even Adam never feared him when he showed up in the garden, so-called. Instead, we find Adam and Eve were both fearing the Most High until they hid from the Most High. But if you say that was Jesus or Yahweh who was in the garden, who showed up to them, and they were hiding and so on, look how dumb these doctrines are. Because you're the same teachers who come around and teach people that the Most High made this first sacrifice when he cut coats of skin for them, and that was a sacrifice pointing to Jesus who should come. Yet on a different day you tell us that it was Jesus who approached them and they were running from him in the garden. And they heard the voice of God walking, and that was Jesus walking or Yahweh walking. Well then, wouldn't it be the same case in that was Yahweh who killed the animal so-called to give them coats of skin? So why is Yahweh killing an animal to make a first sacrifice to point to Yahweh who should come? Didn't Yahweh already come to Adam right there? So Yahweh shows up and he's going to give a sacrifice to show that Yahweh will come and perform a sacrifice. When Yahweh is so-called right there performing a sacrifice right in front of their damn eyes and giving them a coat of skin out of it. You see how silly these people are? And you allow them to ram Yahweh Calvary doctrines down your throat because you'd rather eat up every damn lying doctrine than just simply let your heart cleave to the truth of the Most High. And you think I should have nice words for you when the Most High is cussing out the Israelite in scripture, his very self. His prophets are cussing out the Israelites. And you want people to speak nice to you? Well, of course I speak nice sometimes. But the Most High speak nice sometimes too. Other times he cusses us out. So that's garbage saying that sacrifice. You see how twisted they are? They say it was Yahweh whose voice was heard in the garden. And then they switch and say that was Yahweh offered the sacrifice. That was the Most High offered the sacrifice. So they conveniently switch up all the time. It was Yahweh's voice who was heard, and then it was the Most High who, upon talking with them, killed the sacrifice. It's silly. They're not consistent because their doctrine has no consistency about it. 1 Samuel 15:23. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft,